Now, before I go into my experience working on the rail yard, I gotta tell you what I've learned so far. You see, I never believed in ghosts. Sure, I watched shows like Ghost Hunters with Jason Hawes and things of that nature, but I never really believed in ghosts. And frankly, I've never been in any situation where there were ghosts around that would allow me to formulate an opinion on ghostly activity. So, when people told me on my job that they were seeing a ghost, I thought those people were crazy. But since encountering what they were talking about, here are the 3 things that I can tell you for sure. Number 1, ghosts are real. Very, very real. Number 2, a mad ghost is a very bad individual that you want nothing to do with. And number 3, there's really not much you can do when you find yourself in a situation where ghosts still are around, except for remove yourself from that situation. Listen, I've been working at train yards for the past 10 years, and my job is kind of fluid. You know, some days I'm in the office working as a personal assistant for my boss. Other days he's got me out on the yards, working forklifts and working cranes. I'm kind of the guy who does whatever comes his way. Now, during the COVID lockdowns, we had a lot of people lose their minds and start quitting their job. So we went from working shifts with 30 men down to shifts with 15 men. And then on a nighttime shift, because everybody was so afraid and they were quitting, we got down to 10 people trying to do the job of 30 people. So I want you to understand something. When you see people on the news talking about supply chain issues, they're not lying to you, because I'm a part of the supply chain and it's broken. I mean, it's broken as hell. Why? Basically because grown men are too afraid to do their jobs. Anyway, with all that said, this rail yard that I work at has had its fair share of horrific accidents. And I call them accidents because nobody's running around trying to murder people on the rail yard. It's just bad shit tends to happen. Like one guy wasn't paying attention, was in between 2 train carts. So bam, smashed right in between the 2. However, the most horrific one that I've ever witnessed was when I first got this job. You see, 2 of our forklifts was down. The other 2 forklifts were working on the other side of the yard. And so we were having to try and load this freight car with a mini crane. This particular box being loaded was full of railroad spikes. Now, normally, a railroad spike is not dangerous whatsoever. It's just a big hunk of metal, not particularly sharp at all, but a couple of thousand railroad spikes all inside of one container, hovering above, being moved through the air, is very, very, very dangerous. Again, this is like my 2nd or 3rd day on the job when this happens. So I'm standing off to the side, watching the crane operator move this crate when the strangest, craziest shit I've ever seen begins to happen. Somehow, some way inside his confined, air-conditioned cabin, the crane operator gets attacked by dozens of wasps. I'm looking at him as he's swinging his arms left to right, up and down, hitting buttons, shifting levers. That crane begins to swing to the left, slams into the building, the crate breaks open, and railroad spikes rain down on this poor man who was standing right there next to the building. And when I tell you this was the most gruesome, grotesque thing I've ever seen in my life, because instantly he is crushed by thousands of these spikes, breaking bones, piercing flesh, literally the most horrible accident that I've ever seen in my 10 years working here. Now, by the time they dug him out, he had railroad spikes in his neck, in the top of his head, in his back, his arms, and everything else was just smashed and broken. Now, for those of you who don't really work in a dangerous profession, typically after there's an accident, you go months and months and months without anything crazy happening because everyone is on their P's and Q's. Typically, those accidents happen because people get too relaxed in a dangerous situation. And that's what happened here. We went months without anything crazy happening. I mean, months. But then these rumors started to spread that people were actually seeing the ghost of this man who died in that accident. For years, I'm talking about for years, it persisted that different employees were saying they were having run-ins with this man's ghost. But I never really worked the night shift until this whole COVID thing popped off. So I never had an opportunity to encounter it. Now, I'm grabbing you, picking you up, bringing you to where we are. Boom. COVID done hit. People quitting their jobs. They losing their mind. My boss is stressed out to the highest level I've ever seen him stressed before. And when he gets stressed, he takes that shit out on me. I'm working a night shift. Well, not the night shift. I'm working the overnight shift, which is something I've never ever done. My wife and kids are at home pissed off at me because I'm away from the house in the wee hours of the morning, and they don't like it. So things are going crazy. Now, my job requires quite a significant amount of paperwork that has to be done. So I'm working my way through the building, headed into my boss's office. Now, he only works the day shift, so I use his desk at night, put my feet up on it. Kind of a great big fuck you for making me do this in the first place, right? So I'm in his office. Now, to describe it to you, when you're sitting at his desk, your back is facing the wall. The door is in front of you on your right-hand side. On your left-hand side is a couple of file cabinets. On the far left side of the room is even more file cabinets, right? So I'm sitting there working through my paperwork, and this eerie feeling comes over me. I done been in this building at night plenty of times, but I ain't never really had no eerie feelings. But yeah, this eerie feeling kind of jumps in me, and I hear what sounds like somebody sliding their feet down the hallway. Not walking, not like clunk, 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 but more so like just sliding down the hallway. And I'm thinking, okay, it ain't many of us here at night. Everybody here should be out on the yard working. And I'm saying to myself, y'all around here fucking around inside. You need to be outside handling business so we don't fall behind. So I get up, walk around the desk, head out the door, look left, look right. Nobody's there. But I know what I just heard. I heard those footsteps. Turning around, headed back to the desk, sitting back down, doing more paperwork. About 10 minutes pass, and it's all quiet. But then I hear the steps again. This time faster and more aggressive, like someone is running down the hallway. And I'm getting pissed. I'm like, yo, y'all need to quit playing, quit fucking around, and get to work. So I hop up, run to the door, look into the hallway. Nobody's there. But that eerie feeling that I was describing to you earlier gets worse. And if I was to describe it to you, it was kind of like pins and needles, but with alcohol on the tips, because my skin was tingling and burning, right? Now I'm sitting back at the desk. I know there's some weird shit going on. It's beginning to slip into the back of my mind, the whole ghost story, right? And I'm verbally telling myself, man, that's not true. Finish doing your paperwork. Let's get to the next task. When I look up and see the door to that room, which opens inward, slam shut. Bam! Now, I'm telling you, I'm watching that door move and slam. There is no one there touching that door. So now I'm officially freaked out, standing up, gathering my paperwork and saying to myself, okay, this shit is going to have to be done outside in one of the cranes or one of the trucks or anywhere but in this building. Imagine me standing there, grabbing all my paperwork, sliding it under my armpit, opening the door, peeking my head out, looking right, looking left, looking right. Now, there were two ways out of this building. If I just went to the right and straight down the hallway, there was an emergency exit door. One of those metal doors with the big glass window pane with the barbed wire in between the glass. I could go that way. Or if I went left, I had to go all the way down the hall, make a right, make a left, make a right, and head out the front door. Quite naturally, I'm looking for the fastest way out of the building as possible. So there I am, speed walking down the hallway to that side door, paperwork tucked under my left armpit, my right hand reaching for the bar that opens the door. When I get a glimpse through that window, a man standing there right behind me, railroad spike in his hand, Michael Myers style, like he's about to stab the shit out of me. Now, pause right here in the story for me for a moment because I want to be clear with you. What I did next is what I remember doing. That doesn't mean that it's exactly what I did, but it's only what I remember doing. Because part of me kind of blacked out and freaked out and just scrambled. Now, here's what I remember. I remember falling to the ground, elbowing that door bar, opening it up, and kind of rolling out of the door. And I talk about a commando roll, like I rolled forward. I mean, just like pretty much falling my ass out of the door. Here's what I also remember. I remember hearing that glass shatter. And I remember for a fact, I didn't hit the glass. I hit the bar itself on the door because I had this huge bruise on my forearm. Now, understand, I've rolled out that door in no particular brave manner or fashion whatsoever, just getting the hell out of there. And now I'm standing up, turning around, looking back in that direction, and I still see what looks like a man standing there in that open doorway. Listen to me, from that point on, I don't know what the hell this ghost did because I didn't stick around to see it. I grabbed a few pieces of paper that fell to the ground that I could get to. The rest of them, fuck it, they stayed where they were. Went to my truck, drove it all the way to the other end of the rail yard where everyone was working, hopped out, and they knew by the look on my face that some crazy shit had already went down. Because the first thing they said was, "You saw him, huh?" Understand, these are the same people who had been telling me for years that this guy was out here, and I was telling them that they were crazy. But they was like, "You saw him, right?" I said, "Man, I don't know what I saw, but whatever I saw just tried to stab the shit out of me with a railroad spike." So if that's what y'all been seeing, we got us a huge problem out here. And I'm going to have to talk to the boss about getting this taken care of because that shit ain't right. Listen to me. The next day, I get to work early, way early, so I can catch my boss and tell him what I experienced. It's me and him in the office together, and I'm trying to explain to him, listen, they got some weird stuff going on around here, boss. You know, like windows breaking, people seeing things, shadows, all this other crazy stuff. We need to see about getting a priest or some kind of blessing, something, boss, because it's going bad. Things are going real bad. He don't believe. Understand? When I say he don't believe me, he is looking at me like I'm freaking crazy. In fact, he tells me to get my crazy ass out of his office. Listen to me. That was no problem whatsoever. I need this job. I got a family to take care of. But I'm going to tell you what we who work the overnight shift don't do. We don't carry our ass up in that building in the night, in the dark. It's off limits. As for my paperwork, it's done in my truck or one of the other guys' trucks. And as far as parking, we all park right next to each other. If somebody's going to their vehicle to get something to eat, somebody else walks with them. We have an entire buddy system set up for the night shift, all because we got some shit going on out here on this rail yard that ain't normal.